Attorney knows best. Intelligent interviews. Interesting insight. Intriguing information. Attorney knows best. Here's your host, Sean Bartley.
Today's a great day. We're right on time. Speaking of time, I have the pleasure today of speaking with Marcel Benson of Benson Watch. We measure our lives by the time we spend and the things we do with that time, and there's no finer way to utilize our time and measure it than with a fine timepiece or watch. Today, we're talking with Marcel Benson of Benson Watch. Thanks for coming to the show, Marcel. How are you?
I'm doing well, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Well, I've always been a big fan of watches, and when I saw your ad, I think it was on Facebook, I clicked on it, and I was looking at the great quality of the watches, and then I said, let me see more about the story in this timepiece. But what caught my eye was the quality of the watch, and then what even compelled me even more is when I saw you, Marcel, and I was like, man, he looks like one of my friends from the University of Maryland. I got to talk to him. I reached out right away, and you were kind enough to contact me back. Thanks so much. Why'd you decide to go into watches?
Well, Sean, my passion for watches started a long time ago. I got my first watch or timepiece when I was 7. My mother purchased this silver Kenneth Cole for me, and I wore that watch, pretty much every day for a number of years. And that's kind of what sparked the interest in watches. From there, like every time I would be out at a mall or when I would go out, and see a watch that I liked, like I had to get it, save my money and would get a watch. That's pretty much all I spent my money on when I was a child. However, I was passionate about, and I had no clue that it would be something that I would make a career. I went to school, studied business, and then went to work in consulting, for a number of years, and realized that it wasn't fulfilling. I felt a strong sense of not belonging, and I definitely knew that it wasn't something that I could do long term. So I started to evaluate my life and really, examine some of the decisions that I've made over the years. And I realized that I wanted to, not continue down this path. I wanted to do something that made me happy. So that's when I decided to start the watch company. And not only start the watch company to sell watches and design a watch that I would like to see on the market, but also, to inspire the masses to spend their time doing what they love, which is our slogan. So the watches essentially are a metaphor, for that message.
What's your slogan?
It's time should be spent doing what you love.
That's awesome.
It's engraved on the back of each watch. And the idea is that, I left my job. I needed some sort of, reminder. I needed something to make the decision that I made make sense. So, me putting that on the back of the watches were really for me. And then it ultimately became something that, that people loved the most about it. And a lot of people, like I said, beyond the product being quality, which is a given for, if you're selling products, it should be good. It was really the story that so many people resonated with, because found out that there's a lot of people that are in situations and doing things that they don't necessarily, their heart is not necessarily still in.
Right.
And impact on the world is just serving as that reminder. Like, me continuing in the direction of my dreams inevitably inspires, others to do the same thing.
Yeah, your story was inspirational. I saw the video clip on Facebook off your website, and I was like, wow, I got to talk to Marcel Benson. Your story about your love of watches is very similar to mine. I didn't have the wherewithal to save up, but I was always gifted watches, luckily. There was a guy named C.B. Thompson who gave me watch that I really cherished when I think I graduated high school. It was a Casio quartz, but it was like a gold-looking Casio quartz. It was skinny, and the links matched the face kind of thing. And it was a quartz watch. I still have that watch to this day. My wife tries to commandeer my little cheap watch collection and throw them away, and I won't let her. But and then also, I got a watch when I was little from my Aunt Veronica. She lives in Laurel. And she gave me a Disneyland, a Mickey Mouse watch with the Red Baron that went around. It was a Red Baron and a plane went around as the time hand, or the seconds hand, excuse me, and it was Mickey Mouse and the Red Baron, and that was my first watch. So I kind of match your love of watches that from an early age.
Awesome, that's pretty cool.
Your story in switching careers is very inspirational because we get sold this cookie cutter life in school, right? So you go to high school, and you get sold this idea if you go to college, your life is going to be right, and you follow this cookie cutter script. And that cookie cutter script does produce results, and it does lead to financial stability and gives you direction and focus. But sometimes that cookie cutter path isn't for everyone. What school did you go to, and why did you decide to study business when you were there?
I went to Morehouse College, and
Nice.
I originally was a English major, and I somehow, because I picked up a love for reading, like in high school. Excuse me, somehow this light just went out. Okay, there we go. I picked up a love for reading in high school, and I just knew that I was going to ultimately, become a teacher and teach literature. And I'm not even sure exactly why I thought that that's what I wanted to do. But it's what I spent my first year doing. And then, I started meeting with, people from Teach for America and just kind of, observing the lifestyles of people afterwards that went that route. And I was just like, maybe I don't want to be a teacher.
Right.
And I just, no disrespect to teachers at all, but I realized that, and it could have been unique to my situation, coming from a place where we didn't have a ton of disposable income, and actually just getting through college was a challenge in itself financially. I definitely wanted to do something that made decent money.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when, I started just kind of talking to different, professors in the different schools at Morehouse. And, I started talking to the finance and accounting professors, and they just seemed to have the lifestyle that was, more attractive, from a financial standpoint. They had traveled all these places. They had these businesses that they had built. And I was just like, maybe I'll go and work in corporate one day or have a business. And then obviously as I started to progress through so I switched my major. As I started to progress through, my business major, I was definitely pushed in the direction of going into, a financial position on Wall Street or consulting.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, most people that are in the School of Business at Morehouse, they go into, working at Wall Street at a Barclays or, a Vanguard, or they go into consulting at a Deloitte or a Grant Thornton, or a Accenture or something like that. So that's the route I chose. I chose the consulting route, and they pay you a lot, coming right out of college. So for some, who struggled in college to be able to get an offer letter, that has a substantial income was definitely something that was attractive. So that's the route I went.
Yeah.
But, like I said, some years into it, you realize there's really not an amount of money. Well, maybe there is an amount of money. Maybe $100 million will make you feel okay doing something that you don't love.
That you don't like. Did you work for? Did you go to Wall Street? Were you on Wall Street?
What's
Or
that?
did you go to Wall Street, or did you go consulting
no,
route?
I did. No, yeah, I went to consulting. I did have a offer from a firm on Wall Street, but I decided to go the consulting route, and I did enjoy it for a time. Like solving problems is something that entrepreneurs do. So
Right.
For a person who has an entrepreneurial spirit or brain, consulting is probably the most suitable career path as far as corporate is concerned. So, some years into it, I realized it just wasn't, I didn't really feel like I belonged. Like I'm on a team, I'm on a team with guys that, were all kind of from this, the same background, Ivy League guys that, just kind of had a certain like ethos. And, I really felt like I was just kind of like on the outside of a lot of that. And, I wanted to create something that I could both, have a career out of, that I enjoy, and that I felt like, I belonged to.
Right.
So I just went ahead and created it. And I had no idea that, that things would, how things would go. Like, I mean, obviously you always wish for the best.
Right.
But at the time it seemed crazy to be able to replace my income with something that I built.
Right.
Right.
That's one of the hardest transitions, is knowing that you can make a living for yourself and that you don't have to rely on somebody else. I mean, I had that when
Absolutely.
I decided I have my own law firm, outside of the podcast. And that was one of the hardest things that I had to realize, is that I could make the money myself. And I was lucky to have a friend by the name of Jim Holderness, and then I had a client by the name of Joe Seahusen. And Joe Seahusen would say, "Why don't you have your own firm? I'm coming to this firm, and I only want to talk to you." He goes, "Yeah, I came to this firm because I wanted to talk to, the main partner." He goes, "But now I don't even want to talk to the partner. I want to talk to you. Why don't you have your own firm?" And then my friend Jim Holderness was saying, "Sean, look at how much money you're making that firm." He goes, "They're not making it. You're making it." And those are the people that inspired me. Did you have anybody talk to you like that and inspire you to leave? Or did you just come to the realization of your own? Was there anything you read?
Absolutely.
Somebody you talked to?
Yeah, I was definitely reading a lot of self-help books, which I think is having a healthy mix of that in with the knowledge type of books, like the the books that are actually technical. I think a nice mix of that is great for you. But I was reading like the Think and Grow Rich, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Millionaire Next Door, a lot of these books that kind of talked about how trading your time for for money is not a sustainable way to wealth.
Right.
You can eventually build wealth, but it's a much longer, less satisfying road. If you're somebody who values your time. So
right.
and then I remember distinctly a couple conversations that I had with coworkers. There was this we had this meeting that we used to kind of jokingly call blackpeoplemeet.com. But
did you guys buy the website? Because that's a website now,
we didn't
man.
have a website, but
I think there's a website called Black People Meet. Yeah,
right. We named it that, but essentially it was a meeting that like a lot of the black professionals in the firm would have once a month, just to kind of be able to discuss issues in an open forum without any sort of like judgment or ramifications. So from having those meetings and talking to those people, we all it would often come up like what our billable hours were, like our billable rate when we go to these client sites. And you're talking like $200-300 an hour on some sites, and we weren't making anywhere near that.
Yeah, you're probably getting like $40 out of the 300.
Yeah. Like, I mean, like most of us, like, coming out, we're making like, like 85, and then, by the time I, left, I was, at the 6-figure mark, but,
Right.
it's still nowhere near the 300 they were probably making from and that's just me, not to mention the other, 7 guys on my team.
Right.
So these contracts were massive. And you made pennies in comparison to what the firm actually brought in.
Right.
So that definitely got me thinking about just like other ways to to make income. And originally I was thinking I would go to the consulting route outside of work, but then I was just like, hey, do I want to replicate this work,
Right.
or do I want to do something that I really love? And like when I started thinking about things that I love and what my passion was, it was like, what are some things that you do without pay and it brings you joy anyway? And that was definitely like the watch collecting. Like I realized I had a ridiculous knowledge, about watches as far as like the, not just the movements, but the, the different, houses,
Right.
Globally, the different brands, things that I guess most people didn't take the time to really consider.
Right.
So these are things that just kind of, fed the idea that, hey, this is something that you really are into. So I gave it a shot, and it just happened to be good timing because the internet started to become explosive in the e-commerce space.
Right.
And it really made it, it made it easy to make the transition to start scaling and making a decent, living from selling, items on the internet around that time.
Right. So did your business training help you with setting up the company and learning how to scale it, or did you have a mentor or somebody help you find your way to manufacturing and selling? Because manufacturing is, I think, one of the biggest hurdles.
Yeah, absolutely. Finding and then understanding that you need backups and you need to. There's a whole nother world in like negotiating and finding the proper manufacturer and terms. That definitely was not learned in school, but I'm not a person that will completely just say that college is not a good idea or like school, because there's a lot of things that I did learn.
Right.
How to properly do research, like my presentation skills. Professionalism, understanding like how to make connections with certain types of people, because you can't just hop in an email or just call certain people. Like there's a process, there's a an approach,
right?
And a lot of this was learned in school. So but that in concert with mentors, I probably have about 10 mentors, all for different things, and they were definitely critical in in helping me figure a lot of these things out.
One of the big things is when you have one of the biggest hurdles to overcome is when you have like a professional degree. You went to an amazing college, Morehouse College, HBCU, College of Dr. Martin Luther King, right? And you've got this career path and you got it made, and you're about to leave this cushy job making 6 figures. What did your coworkers say to you when you said you were going to leave? And how was it dealing with the uncertainty that they may have created if they offered a negative comment?
Oh, there was definitely some negative, because I did it. I didn't do the 2-week notice. And I don't necessarily recommend that people do it like that. Like you should, your name is huge. You always want, people to have good things to say about you. But I knew that if I didn't leave abruptly, that I wouldn't leave. So I would discuss it, and I would talk about it, amongst my colleagues. And I had the LLC. It was I was incorporated, and I was selling a couple of watches, but it was more like hand to hand. Like
right.
The volume that I was doing was low enough for me to actually drive the watches to the people that purchased them.
Right.
That's how few we were selling.
Okay.
So, at that time it was just kind of like, oh, you have your, this little watch company over here. It was, there are a lot of brilliant people in corporate, but a lot of them can't necessarily see how a business can work, even though they're helping a business work.
Right.
Right.
Well, but because what they do
can't
is the
necessarily
big businesses hide it by creating all these little departments and keeping you in your department so that you can't
Right.
see how they're really making money.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Precisely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So yeah, there were definitely some snickers and a couple of slick comments, but and at the moment it definitely it got to me. It was just like, man, like it's because it was coming from a lot of people that I actually admired.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing people that I'm like, man, if I could just make it to management level, and I could be making this amount. And now I'm at a point where I've at a younger age, I've seen more money than some of the managers that I've had back then.
Right.
And now I understand that it's like there's so much more out there when you're doing something that is aligned with your purpose and is true to you, and you don't even realize like how much work you've put in because it's something that you enjoy. And like I said, the internet is a fascinating thing because it allows you to speak to so many people at one time, which can translate to to very fast and high growth. So then yes, it was very difficult, but as I started to navigate the waters a bit, it started to become clear, like that my trajectory actually extended when I left corporate.
Right. When I had a big cushy corporate job at American Honda back in the 90s off Torrance Boulevard near Palos Verdes, and that's in the news because that's where Tiger Woods crashed, and it was off Hawthorne Boulevard. As a matter of fact, Torrance
I love
Boulevard.
Palos Verdes. I love the mountain views.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like off the water.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy. I had a friend that lived up there, and I'd go hang out with her, and her apartment building was right next to the cliffs, and we go look at the cliffs and stuff. But but I had this cushy job, beautiful apartment in Long Beach, California, and I was going to law school. And the people at corporate at Honda would say, "Are you crazy? It's going to cost you this much money, and there's no guarantee that you're going to get much more money." She goes, "Everything at Honda is paid for. You got the life here." And you did have the life. Honda was an amazing company. But the problem with Honda was it wasn't fulfilling me. It was a great company, great career opportunity, great pay, great car I could have. But it wasn't fulfilling me, and it took some courage. After I told one person, I said, I'm not telling anybody else, because they were encouraging the fear that we have inside of us innately as humans is to avoid risk and be safe. Avoid risk and be safe, right? How did you muster the courage to take on the risk and quiet those voices of fear that you may have had? Some people don't have it. Maybe you didn't have it, but I had voices of fear when I started my law firm, and I have voices of fear leaving a nice job at American Honda to go to law school. Thanks for listening to AttorneyKnowsBest.com. If you hadn't heard, I'm using Anchor.fm to record this podcast. Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First, Anchor.fm is free. That's right, totally free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will then distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. I listen to my podcasts on Google Podcast. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app now or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's ANCHOR.FM to get started. Back to the podcast. Thanks for listening. How did you combat those voices of fear or self-doubt that you may have had?
If I'm being honest, I know sometimes like people will may get on a show and try to, come up with some really, cool way of how they did something like that. I really don't know. it was something beyond me that that just allowed me the courage. Like I just a part of me just knew that I would be fine. So where that confidence or courage came from, I'm not quite sure. Maybe it was the fact that there are people that are doing it, and I like I said, in some of the books that I read, I started seeing like the reason that people have jobs, which is supposed to be the security, right, is because people have businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So I was looking at it as not so much of a risk, but simply just a different decision,
Mm-hmm.
like just going a different direction, like choosing a different position in life.
Right.
Like, do I want to own something, create something, or do I want to be a part of something? And I realized that in being a part of something, I was always at the mercy of the person who created it.
Yes.
So if I ever wanted to feel like if I ever wanted to feel like I belonged, it had to be something that I created.
Mm-hmm.
And it may have been smaller. It may not have been something that that would grow, but I knew that at least I could create the culture. I could create the the tone and the pace. And I think that was definitely something that was that played a role in me just having the courage and kind of silencing or quieting that fear.
Right. I mean, it's an inspirational story. I mean, there are probably hundreds of thousands of people that want to leave their corporate job or want to leave their cushy, comfortable job and start a company, yet they don't have the courage or the inner drive to do it, but they always dream. And you made your dream a reality. And I think that's, wow, it's inspirational, inspires me with my podcasting venture and continuing pushing forward with my law firm. Did you weigh any other businesses before deciding to go with watches, or you just said, hey, I love watches, I'm going to go into the watch business? I mean, I love watches. I thought about it. I'll get into that in a second after you give your answer. But how did you decide on watches when there were a myriad of opportunities that you could have explored?
Yes. I mean, so, obviously, people are in business to make money, right? But I don't think that it should be the sole reason that you're in business. Mm-hmm. And I think that some of the other ventures that I did embark on didn't go so well, or they weren't sustainable because I was only in it for money. But the entrepreneurship spirit dates to when I was a kid, and to this day, my cousin teases me about it because he's from New York. He came down for a weekend, and it was this is when I was living in Maryland,
mm-hmm.
and it was snowy. It was snowing outside. It was this big storm that was coming through. And I rallied everybody together and said, like, hey, like we should start like preparing for this. Like maybe we could make some money.
Right.
So we got some flyers printed up. We put them in literally every mailbox in our neighborhood, like hundreds of houses. We went door to door, and then the snow comes, right, and then in my
so you handed out flyers before the snow came. In anticipation of the snow?
Yes, we had.
Oh wow,
yes,
that's genius.
We knew the forecast, right? So
uh-huh.
this was something. This is how I was thinking, and didn't necessarily realize it was it was in me. I was just like, this way, we don't. They'll know that they have somebody they can call immediately to to get them out, and we branded it as like it was like I forgot what we called ourselves. It was like It was something kids, like, just like kids shoveling snow, or, it was something that the entire title like made it obvious what we were doing. It was like kids,
right.
kids shoveling snow or something like that. I can't remember the exact name. But I had a cell phone, at the time. I'm probably like, I couldn't have been, more than like middle school, but I did have a cell phone that was for emergencies that my mother purchased and my dad wasn't happy about. So I put my cell phone number on that flyer,
uh-huh.
and literally 8 a.m. in the morning, phone starts ringing. So I'm waking everybody up. I'm like, look, like we're starting to get some business. Like, come on, guys. Like, we have these, these schedules.
Right.
So we started out like we would go there. And I remember like my dad, like, took us around in his truck, and, I would get out and I would be like, just telling people where to go. Like, I'm like,
right,
we need you here. We're going to come back and get you about 5 minutes, and then we're going to put you over in this house. And then, then I had to, kind of like go back to the drawing board, and I realized like, hey, we can take all of these, appointments, but let's just stagger them a little bit. And then we'll put everybody on one so that we can just cut down the time that it takes to complete it. And then we can go to the next one and then just like continue that. But the thing is, I wasn't doing any shoveling. I was literally just like
managing,
scheduling, and managing. And we made so much money, and we split it evenly. It's not like I took the larger portion. We split it evenly. And my cousin was just like, man, like I wouldn't have known to do this like this.
Right.
And, so that was my first, my first like entrepreneurial endeavor. And then obviously like, I sold like, like some candy and CDs and stuff in high school. And then when I was at Morehouse, some classmates and I started a valet trash removal service, which, it's pretty popular now. But then like we were like one of the only people doing it, like certain apartments, buildings, like garden style apartment buildings where you have to actually physically take the trash like out to the dumpster.
Yes.
We hired a contractor to come in with a pickup truck and come collect the trash cans and take them to the dumpster, bring the trash cans back to the people's apartments, and they put them back in their house. And it was an amenity essentially, and we sold it as an amenity. But what happened is some apartments, when things started to crash, because that was around like 07, 08 in the real estate market. They just started to cut off like a lot of things that weren't, necessary in the budget. And we tried to flip it and say like, hey, you can offer this to your customers as like a service that they pay for. But we just kind of, had a hard time with that. And then we lost a few contracts, and then we, being college students, we were just like, all right, forget it. So we wound up,
all right, forget it. Just,
like we stopped it. But, those were the other companies that I had tried in the past. And I saw and remember the feeling of that. Like I remember the first check that we received. It was like maybe like $600 something bucks. But I just remember the feeling of like, wow, like nobody came and told us to do this and paid us. Like we created this idea.
Right.
So it was experiments like that always kind of kept in the back of my mind that this is an option. And I guess like, with my corporate experience after having, gone through that, maybe I felt a little more equipped and confident, to make a decision, into running my own company, as an adult, and really like, that being the career path. So definitely a lot of that early experience, helped out. Like Benson Watch was not my first, my first go at entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I think in my experience with business clients and friends who have their own businesses, that the entrepreneurial task of doing anything for a buck, right, and learning how to manage, coordinate labor, pay people, manage your experiences, all adds up for a greater opportunity. It's like a stepping ladder, right? You might not see it, and you might not know that it could lead to something else, but that the snow shoveling experience and the coordination of your labor, the advertising, the market, then the delivery, wow, that's all adds into what you're doing now with Benson Watch. It's amazing.
Absolutely.
I love watches, okay, and there's a website that I would go to, and I have a watch collection, and I'm going to be adding some Benson watches to my collection. I got to talk to you about a promotion you guys had that I was trying to take advantage of, but I think it's too late. But there's a website I would go to, and I downloaded the dictionary, and it's called FHS.ch. FHS.ch. And it's the Swiss Watchmaking Federation. And I downloaded the glossary. They have a PDF glossary. And they also have a guide on how you can tell, a real-time piece from a counterfeit timepiece. And I memorized it. But I never had the vision or the gumption to go into a watch business. And I credit you. And it's like a privilege to talk to you about it. Now, when you look at seed capital to get started, you were making six figures and you were selling watches on the side. Was it an easy transition just to say, hey, I'm leaving my cushy corporate dream job, six figures, Morehouse grad, and I'm starting a company? Was it a smooth, easy transition?
It's not a smooth transition. It could be a smooth transition if that was the goal the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens is you kind of start to, especially in your earlier years, you start to build a life around, around your income.
Yes.
And you're not taking into consideration, hey, maybe I should be living like way below my means, because there may come a time where I want to leave and I want to have some money to be able to, to provide some sort of flexibility and sustainability. So I wasn't necessarily thinking like that. So it was not easy. And there were definitely, years in the beginning where I was spending way more money than I was actually bringing in, because, there are just some inevitable things that have to take place. Like, you have to build your brand. Like, there's a lot of costs that you just can't foresee. Like, it's not just, finding a manufacturer, paying the manufacturer, and then all of a sudden everybody purchases your watch.
Right.
It's photo shoots. It's mistakes that manufacturers may make. It's, you may blow through $20,000 or $30,000 a couple of times, like getting to the right person, which is a whole other thing. Like, cause you kind of have to get over some of the mistakes that you made rather quickly if you want to continue.
Mm-hmm.
So I never sell entrepreneurship as some easy thing or easy transition. Okay. It truly has to be something that you want to do, because there's so many different sets of hands that you can get.
Mm-hmm.
But you do have to have an unwavering belief that that what you're working on will pan out. And it will. If you stick around in something long enough, it will definitely pan out. If you're learning the lessons and applying them, it will pan out in some way. But it's a lot of you get a lot of reasons to want to quit early on.
Right.
And I think that's why I think the statistic is that there's only of all the small businesses, there's only about 7% that actually hit $1 million in a calendar year.
Wow. When did you start Benson Watch? What year?
I started Benson Watch. We incorporated 2015, but it wasn't until about 2018 that we really started, taking it seriously. That was when I left my corporate job and really started to see income from it. Before then, it was just it was really a hobby that I was making a little bit of money from, for a few years.
Did you, your first Benson watch that you were selling, did you go through the manufacturing process on that? How did you obtain them, and how did you market that?
Yeah. So the first, I remember I can just kind of walk you through the process. So
yes.
I remember, I was sitting around, I had a roommate at the time, and we were just kind of just talking about, the future. And, somehow we got on entrepreneurship and business. And I was just like, I really want to start a watch company. And, nobody really took it serious. But I know that when I said it and I felt like me speaking that out loud, I was just like, man, that is what I want to do. So I immediately started just trying to figure out I had no idea what was next, but I immersed myself, in watches, completely. And, I had friends that I knew could try to draw up different watches. I would be on the phone with them for hours, trying to explain to them,
mm-hmm.
What the watch design was. and they would draw it up and they would send it to me, and I'm like, oh, nah, this is not it. This is not what I'm saying. And, and then I got to a point where I was just like, let me try to start like, sketching them myself. And, I'm not an artist, naturally, but I learned how to sketch the silhouettes.
Right.
And then like write detailed descriptions that work to send to the manufacturer so that they can create, what's called a 3D rendering.
Mm-hmm.
And, I did that. I started, like I said, immersing myself in, in watches. I started getting on blogs. And the way that I found the first manufacturer was actually through a guy that I met. I never forget him. He was I wonder if his company's still in existence, but he was from Australia,
mm-hmm.
and he owned a company called the Orange Watch Company.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember he was in this chat on a blog, a watch blog, and I was in there. I was just, I was asking questions, and I was just like, I was like, man, like, I'm thinking about starting like my, my line. Like I would never directly ask somebody for their source or their manufacturer.
Right. Yeah. Because that's like, unprofessional.
I was like, what, what?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was like, what, what would you, cause just from reading some of his comments, he seemed like he was open to like answering questions about the business. So I was just like, what would you recommend, as just like a starting point? Like, like, is there a platform? Do I need to fly to China and like, go to this, this district in Guangzhou? Like,
mm-hmm.
Do I like what, he was like, oh man, it's no problem. He was like, you can use my manufacturer. So he just volunteered this information, and he gave me, the contact, to the manufacturer. But here's where things get a little twisted up. My mind, my skeptical brain was like, why would he just give me a manufacturer? I was like, they can't be good. Mm-hmm. They can't be like, it had to be something. So I decided to go with a different manufacturer that I actually wound up finding on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And that manufacturer actually wound up making off with like $20,000 in my cash without ever like sending the watches.
Wow.
Right. So they sent samples, but when they got the full payout through the wire, which was another mistake that I learned like later on.
Mm-hmm.
They made off with the cash. I was never able to to reach them again. And of course, as an attorney, that international like law or any sort of litigation and that would take, it would be very expensive.
Yep.
It would be very difficult to really pin down
mm-hmm.
This company. So
yep.
It was just a loss. And I realized that any manufacturer that I would work with in the future, I would definitely have to, take through a vetting process. And obviously the biggest thing is like how they accept payment. Like if they only accept payment through wire transfer and there's no sort of, insurance for me, then they're probably not the best option.
Yep. You got to wait till it gets to the port, clears customs, then they get their money. You pay them like a fee
right.
up, you pay them a part up front, but when it arrives at port, clears customs, then they get their money.
Exactly.
Because if they don't,
seriously.
And then an American going over to China trying to get recourse in their court, they're just going to be like, no dice.
Not happening.
Yeah, not happening.
Exactly.
Yeah. That $20,000, I probably would have went bananas over $20,000.
Yeah.
How did you bounce back from that?
It was bad because, fortunately, it wound up coming out of my pocket anyway, but the money came from people who had, pre-ordered.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I had to, return, the money to majority of the people,
mm-hmm.
but there were some people who were nice enough. Just, they were very thoughtful. I'll never forget, like, they were just like, look, we'll wait no matter how long it takes. We do want to see you do well. And I knew that wasn't something that I could just carry with me in business mm-hmm. forever, right? Everybody wasn't going to be that nice. But it was refreshing to see this. Some people just wanted to see me win, and they were patient enough to wait until I figured out the next collection to get their watch instead of getting a refund. Yep. So it wound up being a little less than $20,000 that I had to return.
That's awesome that you had loyal customers and you'd built a loyal customer through obviously having a beautiful client merchant relationship. Talk about how you've been able to build a loyal, faithful customer base, because at the end of the day, delivering and building a trust with, a consumer is important. Your website is amazing. It's beautiful. I thought you were, when I clicked on the website, okay, I thought you were with one of the major housing brands in Europe, or one of our major brands here in America. I mean, it's beautiful, and the watches are beautiful. And it looks like you took a lot of consideration to build trust through your website and the quality of the timepieces that you developed. How'd you learn to do that? I mean, I know HBCUs are great. I mean, HBCUs are in the forefront right now. Did anything in your HBCU experience help prepare you for that? Or was it through the corporate experience that you had?
I think it was a little bit of everything. But one thing I definitely will attribute to Morehouse, it was in a leadership and professional development course that I had. And the professor, Dr. White, she would always talk about how things, relationships should never be, transactional. They should always be, built on, like principles and like, values over time and reciprocity, right? So, some people, the objective is to like just get the product out there and then get a sale, but they're not thinking about the investment in the brand early on, right? Because sometimes there may not be an immediate, return on the investment, but long term there will definitely be. So, a person who has, I'll just say, for instance, some of the renderings that we use for our website, I won't say the amount, but they are much higher than competitors that have the same years in the industry that we have. Mm-hmm. And since we're in a digital age, all people have to go off of is your digital presence. Mm-hmm. So they're like, what am I seeing? Like, what does this piece look like, online? Like, what story is being conveyed online? Like, how does this brand make me feel? So I think it's a combination of like investing in the relationship with the customer, and making sure the customer journey and experience is pleasant, and then also having great customer service. I think I think I have one of the best teams when it comes to that, because first of all, our internet response time is like an hour.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Which is super low. Like you'll absolutely like get a response. And we've even seen over the years how our customer retention has consistently gone up, like over the years. Like, I think like the first year it was around 5. Mm-hmm. And now customer retention is close to 55%.
Okay.
Which is way above industry standard. And like I said, like as a Black-owned business, customer service is one of the things that people kind of already have an idea of how it's going to go, before they actually purchase something from you. So we know that we're combating that idea of like, Black businesses not necessarily always being thorough in certain areas. Mm-hmm. So we think about those areas and we focus on those the most. So like, it's like, okay, we're going to have great aesthetics. We're going to over-deliver, in our product, and we're going to over-deliver in our customer service. Mm-hmm. And I think that's definitely what's helped us build like a loyal following.
Yeah, I think the over-deliver idea and foundation is important. I played football at the University of Maryland, College Park, and I know of a guy. I'm not going to say his name, but I know of a guy. There's 120 guys on the team, but you can't be friends with everybody. But I know of a guy who owns $1 billion company, and one of the things, I know. One of the things that he said,
I know this guy too, I think.
Yeah. One of the things that he said in an interview I saw many years ago is that he has this weird promise. He goes, he overpromises and he over-delivers, and he overpromised on purpose so that it would make him over-deliver. So he ended up giving more. And I think your idea of over-delivering is key. And that's one of the things I do as an attorney. People call and they want to talk to me, then come talk to me. Sometimes I'm too busy, right? But if I'm not busy and they call and I'm free, I'm going to talk to them, because at the end of the day, I'm only an attorney because I have people to serve, right? And your watch brand, you're providing one of the most valuable services that can be provided in all of human existence, right, is management of time and being on time and doing the right things. And when they have a fine timepiece on their watch and they can rely upon it, hey, they're ahead of the game. Sometimes I see people without watches and they go, I just rely on my phone. And I go, phone isn't good enough. Battery goes out. Watch should be there longer than your phone. Yeah. You know?
Right. Absolutely.
What distinguishes Benson from other competitors in the market?
I think it's the combination of, quality and affordability. So, really getting that, that high end, like sustainable level of quality, but, at the same time, not breaking the bank. Our pieces are also, water resistance, a lot deeper than, than most quartz or, timepieces at our, at our price points. A lot of the entry level, pieces have 3 ATM as far as water resistant, but ours are 5 and 10, and we're still providing price points all falling under $350.
Yeah.
So I would say the combination of quality and affordability. Also, our design philosophy, just providing that minimal aesthetic that still somehow finds a way to stand out. So, even our Cardinal collection is very, very simple. You just, it's, a simple Milanese band with the hour tickers, circular hour tickers around the dial. But then like a bold and precise color dial that kind of gives it, a bit of an edge.
Yeah.
So it's, it's not a super loud watch, but in conversation, when somebody gets a glimpse of it, it attracts so many compliments. So that, that's something that we maintain throughout, all our designs. We want people. I think a big part of my philosophy is that, like, when I was younger, a lot of what I was attracted to was super expensive.
Yeah.
And I was like, why does something that's well designed have to be so expensive? And then I understood, like, a lot of it was not necessarily about the design, but the mechanics on the inside. But I was just like, okay, so I'm like, does them taking the mechanics out, like, make the watch, like, not as attractive? Because I still don't see, I still wasn't seeing, like, good looking watches that were, like, what they would call fashion watches, that are in these, like, department stores.
Right.
So just from, like, studying, studying Swiss brands, I was able to, come into the market with, with a similar aesthetic, some, high-end aesthetic, but offering to people for, lower price points.
Yeah, without question. One of the things that really caught my attention is that it's a classic design that's going to withstand the test of time. Mm-hmm. And I also like the pop on the face. When I say pop, I mean the attention on the face. You have that rose gold one. You have the black shiny one with like a hint of gold. And then you also have a green one that really caught my eye and popped out. And then I like the multi-texture of the band itself. So I have one on order, but I need to talk to you about that. But anyway, I got one on order, and I really love the mesh band, because the mesh band just makes it look like it's going to be so comfortable on your wrist. And it reminds me of an old classic watch my dad had many years ago. And I love the band and I love the style. And I love the claps too. The claps is really important on the watch. And those are like accents and features that like the watches you get like at Macy's or whatever don't necessarily have that. But if you go to a fine jeweler, they might have those kind of watches with the fine bands on it. Why should everyone own a Benson watch?
I think everyone should own a Benson watch because of the message, right? Like we've gotten to a point in our society where it's, you know, like you said, you had the person that mentioned that they had their phone. They may not necessarily need a watch, but watches have somehow stood the test of time and survived, you know, technologies like smartwatches and phones because it's a very personal item that usually, you know, means something to a person and also says something about that person. So someone who owns a Benson watch, this is not only a reminder to that person that they should own their time, but it's also, you know, sending a message out to the world of what they represent. And I think, you know, the most fascinating thing is when, you know, two people that own a Benson watch, you know, meet somewhere and they're able to, you know, to share a instant connection or story because of what the company represents.
Yeah, I think having a fine timepiece on your wrist matters. I do evaluate people who don't have watches. I know my wife doesn't wear a watch, and it bothers me that she doesn't wear a watch. But my little 11-year-old son has recently gotten to watches, and he got a digital, like Apple style watch, but it's not an Apple. And then I wear a watch every day, and I just so happen to have on my what is this, the Samsung smartwatch, because I like the connectivity with my phone. But when I see people that don't have watches on, especially men, I like kind of question, you know, what kind of person this is. I'm like, you don't have on I mean, and it's like a subconscious thing in my mind. It's like, this guy doesn't have on a watch. And I don't know why it bothers me, but it bothers me when like men don't have on a watch. And it's a weird thing that I have because I value them so much and I value my time so much that I do make a subconscious, I wouldn't say ruling, so to speak, but it is subconsciously there. This person doesn't have on a watch. And if they have on a nice watch, I want to know what it is. It's a conversation piece.
Right.
And
absolutely.
And if somebody gets in on a Benson watch early through the, you know, initial phases of the growth of your company, the watch will become more valuable as you grow. And as you grow and you continue to expand, if you have one of these first models of a Benson watch, it is going to increase in value as your brand increases in value. It's almost like a stock, right?
Absolutely.
You got first edition of the watch or the first style of this watch. And so people need to jump on it as soon as possible to get one of these watches to make sure they say, I was one of the first, right? You started in 2018. It's 2021. It's 3 years. It's not too late to be in on Benson watches early because your company looks like it's going to have a long-term growth. I think you even have investor opportunities, right?
Yes. Yeah. So we, you know, I recently, you know, traveled to Munich, like actually, you know, during the pandemic, there's a watch conference out there, second to Basel, called Inhorgenta Trend Factory. So they hold it in Munich, Germany, you know, annually. And I was invited to, you know, to be one of the companies that spoke.
Wow.
You know, so, you know, they got us like this, you know, this letter, you know, printed up saying that we grant, you know, permission for, you know, Mr. Benson to visit Germany. You know, went out there for a couple of days and was able to, you know, to speak at the conference. And, you know, one thing that was very troubling, and this is something that I knew about the industry, right? That there literally were no other, you know, Black people in the entire conference. And a big part of, you know, what I discussed in my talk was, you know, that being something that I'm trying to change. Like there not being, you know, much representation in the industry. So it's, I'm sorry, I just kind of lost train of what
you were talking about. You went to Munich, Germany for this watch convention, and I was talking about investor opportunities, and you were going to give a background on how that came about. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so it was there that I realized that there wasn't, many, or not many, there aren't any. There's even a graphic that came out, because I'm usually like checking out, different international publications, just to kind of, take a deeper dive on the industry. And they released this chart that showed the hierarchy of watch brands. And everything from high tier luxury to mid tier to low tier. High tier being like your Richard Milles, your Patek Philippe's, and super expensive watches like that. Your Vacheron Constantines.
Yep.
And then like then you have mid tier. Like your Rolexes.
Tag Heuer.
Tag Heuer, your Arnold and Son and stuff like that. And then, all the way down to micro brands. And the point is that there were no black brands mentioned. And I'm not sure if you recall, but I was actually in a New York Times article named one of the top brands, top black watch owned brands. New York Times did an article on, myself and a couple of other black owned brands. And, myself and another brand being a top owned brand are $1 million, and under companies. Mm-hmm. So the two biggest black owned brands are right at $1 million a year, right? Mm-hmm. Why, when you compare it to some of our counterparts and seeing that they have $300-400 million valuations, even the micro brands, having acquisitions, $100, $200, $300 million, it's like, how did they go from startup to to this level,
right?
And how come there's never been a black brand that's done it? And it's because of the lack of infrastructure and the lack of access to capital. So I've gone the route of trying to get funding from investors. I've even had investors commit $500,000 to me and pull out at the last minute.
Whoa!
And I get the yes, and I'm thinking, oh man, this company's getting ready to take off.
Yeah.
And then last minute, like, it's like, oh, well, there's, this just kind of like, we're going to go a different route.
So what other route can they go? Because really, there's only you. Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. So that made me realize, like, hey, like, there's not going to be a lot of help for you out here in some of these formal financial institutions, right? They may not necessarily believe or even want to see you win. So I decided that, fortunately, like the SEC allowed for equity crowdfunding, and it's really changed the game in startups in the sense of it's allowed us to to really own our stories and be able to get directly to the consumer to not only purchase your product, but make it happen, help grow it. So, we're currently in a seed round of our crowdfund. We will do a subsequent round. But this first round is $1,070,000 that we're raising. Mm-hmm. That's currently the SEC cap for equity crowdfunding, which will change in March. Like, I think they're increasing it to $5 million. But people can get in at the ground level of Benson, for as little as $250. So when you are able to pull together resources, from your customers, fans, and just other people who come in contact with the brand, and you allow them to get in at $250, it just makes it a little easier for you to finally get that $1 million that investors were skeptical about giving you. And it also proves something that, hey, people really do believe in this thing because you were able to raise the money with $250 being the entry. Right. So that means that there's a bunch of people that think that, this company can succeed. So we're actually actively in the middle of a raise. Just within the first couple of days, we were able to, raise over $25,000. And, we still have a long ways to go, but, just the response that we're getting, definitely lets me know that this is something that people want to see grow into something much bigger.
Is it a real investment? So I've seen some on Kickstarter where they go, oh, give us $25 and we'll give you a discount code, or you'll get to buy us. Yeah. Is this a real investment? So as the company grows, their investment's going to grow with you?
Yeah, so that's funny you mentioned Kickstarter because that's actually the first. That was actually something that I did early on to raise money for the first inventory. I did that. Had about 88 backers, and they all got their watches. But that's more crowdfunding on a donation like basis.
Yeah, it's a donation.
This is equity crowdfunding.
This is equity. Wow,
this is
a great
equity
opportunity.
crowdfunding, right? So what you get when you invest is you get what's called a safe note. So a safe note is a mark of the amount that you invested at a specific valuation, and it's a discounted rate. Then it's a discounted rate to what shares will be at a higher valuation when you're raising the final round to really scale the company, which is typically called like a Series A.
Right.
Once that Series A is raised, then those people that invested the 250 or 500, that amount converts to shares. But the amount of shares is at the discounted rate that they got when they put in the 250, 500, or 1,000, up to whatever amount they put in. And then the new investors are getting it at the rate of that current valuation, which is more expensive.
Right.
So your shares then already have value. However, the way that the money is actually paid out is some sort of liquid event taking place. So the company IPOs, or there's an acquisition, or some major investor comes in and buys all the investors out. But all three of those events, is where the investor would get their return. And obviously, like our goal is to go the acquisition route. And that's how we plan to to repay all the investors, is by ultimately selling the company down the road.
Yeah, I think for me, what is important when I invest is, am I going to be Class A initial, or am I going to be Class B on the open market at the fair market rate, and what my return is going to be? The return that people will get now is the best return that you can get from
Absolutely.
an investor, because now you're going to buy below under market value, but
Absolutely.
you're going to get increased market value exponentially greater than what you would get if you went public or something, right? Or you get a Class B share. You're like getting like almost A-level shares, and you're going to be able to capitalize on your investment at a greater rate than at another time when you're like in acquisition phase. That's awesome. That's an awesome
Absolutely.
opportunity. People should really look at your company and invest. Where can people go to, first of all, buy a Benson watch and bracelet? You guys have these gorgeous bracelets also. Where can they go to buy a Benson watch?
People can go and purchase a Benson watch at bensonwatch.com. And people can invest in Benson at republic.co. Just simply search Benson Watch Company. Or if you just want to type invest in Benson Watch in Google, it will pull up the Republic, the Republic website. An even easier way, if you just want to stay on the Benson website, there's a tab on the side menu that says Become an Investor. You simply click on that link on the website, and it will take you directly to the website where you can invest.
The cool thing about investing directly from your website also is that if you get perpetual, it looks like, price discounts and first shot at new releases, if I'm not mistaken, on some of the investment levels. Is that correct?
That's correct. We give away, there are gift cards that are given away at every level. When you get to some of the higher levels of investment, you get to sit in on, designer meeting. I think at like 1,000 or 2,500 level, you get to sit in on investor quarterly call. At 50,000, you actually get a custom watch, one of one, built for you.
Wow.
At the $100,000 level, you get two of those. Dinner with the team. And then, all of the things that are included in the lower tiers as well. So we're really making it interesting and definitely showing, how much we want to embrace the people that, that decide to invest in the company.
That's awesome. I'm going to invest. I'm going to buy. And another thing that I think is really important is that you're from the state of Maryland, right?
Yes.
And what county are you from in Maryland?
I'm from Prince George's County, Maryland.
The great Prince George's County, Maryland. It's a great county in Maryland. A lot of influential, high-powered, hardworking African-American people there. And what high school did you go to in Maryland?
I went to two high schools. I went to Oxon Hill High School.
Okay.
And I also attended Surrattsville High School.
Okay. I don't know much about Surrattsville High School. I think is that in southern Maryland or southern Prince George's County?
Yes, southern Prince George's. It's actually in Clinton, Maryland.
Okay. All right.
So are you familiar with Clinton?
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Surrattsville is the high school that that kids in Clinton attend.
I'm in Maryland. I practice in Maryland. I know Maryland. I went to University of Maryland. But the reason why I know...
I was going to say, you're Maryland through and through.
But I grew up in Southern California, though. But I came to University of Maryland on an athletic scholarship and received a great education. And but the cool thing about Oxon Hill High School, I think I know of two really famous alumni that went there. I think there's an artist named Michelle Indigay-Ocello. And then I think there was a famous basketball player that went to Duke University named, I don't know if it was Brian Hill or something like that, but Oxon Hill produces.
Was it Haney? I mean, not Haney, but Sweeney.
Sweeney. Okay.
Michael Sweeney, I think it was.
But he went to Georgetown, I think Michael Sweeney, but there's a couple of other guys that went to Duke. But then I also have a fraternity brother by the name of Lynn Proden. I'm a Mason, and I think he might have been a school administrator back in the 80s there at Oxon Hill.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. I always like to give my
awesome.
a guest an opportunity to ask me a question if you want, or questions, because I'm kind of pushy. I'm always the guy asking the questions as an attorney, and that's what our show is all about. I'm a curious attorney, love to ask questions, love to learn about stuff, and hope that people can learn from my guest. Is there any question I can help answer for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you flew from California, athletic scholarship to University of Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
When you came to Maryland, was becoming an attorney something that you knew you wanted to do, or did you have NFL aspirations at any point?
Well, that's a great question. I happen to be have a gifted memory, and my mom was big into education. She always bought us every and any book and magazine we wanted. So I always tested really high because of my mom giving us books to read, taking us to museums. And I was really good at sports in high school, junior high, elementary school, right? And I was a great student. So did I want to be a pro athlete? Yeah. It's kind of like asking somebody who goes to school to be an engineer or business. Do you want to really be a CEO, or do you want to be the department head? Yeah. So I wanted to be a pro athlete. Right. But the fact of the matter is I was good enough to earn a scholarship, but I wasn't gifted enough to be a pro. All those guys you see playing pro sports, they'll sell you this story of how they work so harder than everybody else, but 100% it is gift and opportunity. If you go to the wrong school and you're at the wrong place, the wrong time, or you go to the right school and right place, right time. I mean, you look at Steve McNair, who went to Alcorn State, right? And he turned out to be a pro. If he had went to a big school, they might have never let him play quarterback. Yeah. So when I went to Maryland, I wanted to be a pro, but the reality is, I think I had a great education at Maryland, but I wasn't good enough in the coach's eyes to get the tape or the film. And then second, I got hurt. And so when I got hurt, that kind of nixed my dreams because my knee just didn't respond well. And when you're playing college sports, especially football. Like, you have a finite time you're going to be there, right? And the coaches need to win. They need their players. If you can't play, they want you to step aside and let them get somebody else in with a scholarship. So that's what happened. But luckily for me, I was what you call a scholar athlete. And I always maintained. After my first 2 years there, I had a rocky time transitioning from California to the University of Maryland. I was like a fish out of water. I was a sheltered military kid coming from small Southern California town. Now it's a big Southern California town, Riverside, Moreno Valley, California. So, and I got a great education at my high school, Moreno Valley High School in Moreno Valley, California. So I was an outstanding student, and so it was natural for me to just, do well at the University of Maryland with some help. Once the academic support people and the tutors got out of my way and let me study on my own, my GPA shot up.
Skyrocketed.
Yeah. It was like study hall for like a college athlete is a joke, and especially if you're already an advanced learner and you need to learn and read and study on your own. But yeah, I wanted to be a pro, but luckily I had good grades. Did I know I wanted to be an attorney? No. So my last year of undergrad, it was 1993. I was working in what was called the Summer of Service, which led to AmeriCorps and Teach for America. I was in the initial group for that in 1993. It was called Bill Clinton Summer of Service. I was staying at the College of Notre Dame and working with a woman by the name of Kathleen Kennedy Townsend, who started what's called the Maryland Student Service Alliance, where like in Maryland now, you have to do, I think, 40 hours of community service in order to graduate from high school.
Right.
Yeah. So, so I was in the initial program to help found that. And it was my last year of undergrad, and I was like, what am I going to do? All these other people had plans. I had great grades. I was a great student. I had no plans. All I planned to do was go to college and figure it out and graduate. And so somebody mentioned to me, a guy by the name of Kevin Harris, he mentioned to me, he goes, hey, man, maybe you should be a lawyer. And I start thinking about being a lawyer, and I was like, what do lawyers do? And then I just was asking questions about it. I had never met a lawyer, didn't know about becoming a lawyer, nothing. And I start talking to people, and they were like, oh, yeah, I'm going to law school. Everybody knew they were going to law school. I was like, law school? I got a 3-point something. I'm good grades. I mean, the funny thing, football, like, took away from my academic performance. Like, getting a 3.0 as a football player is, like, a big deal, or as any collegiate athlete, it's a big deal because you spend so much time practicing and you get tired. You're, like, tired as a dog. And then you come home and have to try to study, and you're tired, right? Yeah. So when I got injured and I couldn't
imagine, right?
Yeah, when I got injured and I could study, my GPA went from like a 3.0 to like a 3.8, almost 4.0. It was like a joke. I was like, I can study. Wow. I'm not even tired. Wow. It was a joke. Yeah. But so I didn't know any lawyers, and I tried to talk to some lawyers, and nobody would talk to me. It was weird, man. I had a friend who had a high-powered, their mom was a high-powered lawyer in D.C. She didn't even want to talk to me. He actually called her on three-way one time and said, yeah, my friend's thinking about going to law school. And she was like, why do I want to talk to him? He's a football player. He ain't going to be, And he goes, Mom, he's on the phone. And she goes, oh, hey. And I didn't even want to ask any questions after that. But so I decided to go to law school late in undergrad, and I had no help and couldn't figure it out. All these other students had help. They knew what they were doing. And then I got bad advice from some college advisors and college professors. They gave me this bad advice. They go, oh, just apply to law school. You're black, you'll get in, right? And they were white professors. And they were wrong. You're not just going to get in. Wow. Your application has to be tight. Right, I would just fill out the application, send it in, and got denied every law school I applied to. And I was like, wait a minute, I got the good LSAT score, I got the good grades, but I got denied every law school. So I was lucky enough to get a job back in L.A. I had interviewed a guy or a gentleman by the name of Archie Curran and about a business career, and he had moved to L.A., and I called him up on the phone and said, hey, I'm graduating, can I get a job? And he says, yeah, come on out, and he hired me. and I started my career in sales and customer service in LA. And then after working there for a year and a half, they had a whole restructuring. I got laid off. Me and a bunch of people got laid off. And then and I was on unemployment, eating top ramen and drinking this cheap orange juice called Tampico. It's like
Tampico.
Yeah.
I'm familiar. That's funny. I'm very familiar with that. We had that growing up. So I definitely understand.
So I go buy Tampico and top ramen. And then I got lucky and had a job interview through the Urban League with American Honda and got on with American Honda. And then while I was working with American Honda, I just felt like I was too smart. My friend by the name of Pastor Harold Weber, and his son recommended a book to me by a guy the name of Reginald Lewis. And Reginald Lewis had a book called Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? And
all the fun.
Yeah. And I read that. And he went to law school. And I was like, man, I'm going to law school. I got it now. And so I ended up getting into law school. And I went to this great little law school in Indiana called Valparaiso University School of Law. And received an outstanding education at this little can-do law firm in Indiana. And then the rest was history. But, yeah, I didn't know. I mean, did I want to be a pro? Heck, yeah. It's easy, man. I still lament about it. But, I pray about it because it wasn't meant to be, and I'm still not over it. Everybody who played college football and wanted to be a pro and didn't make it is not over it.
Yeah, I could imagine.
That's just how
I could definitely imagine. But, when you look at the statistics, the odds are not in, it's not in most people's favor.
Yeah,
like you said, it's a combination of not just talent, not just hard work, but also, like you said, just being at the right place, right time. I've seen several people. I never forget because I ran track in high school.
Okay.
And I never forget the track coach saying, like, like some people just have what's called like a fast twitch muscle.
Yep.
Like muscle fiber.
Mm-hmm.
So like they're, even with all the training, like there's a range of how fast each person can become.
Right.
So like Usain Bolt can't be replicated. Like he was literally born like that.
Michael Jordan was born like that.
Michael Jordan. Right. You can't, LeBron James, like certain things like cannot be replicated through hard work.
Yeah.
So, you're absolutely right about the talent playing a major role too. And then there's some people whose talent, doesn't get discovered. I've seen that happen, like because they were in bad situations, or they were on a team in high school where the coach never sent players to like major collegiate programs.
Yep.
I've seen that happen.
So for me,
they're what?
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I did witness an example of somebody actually going all the way though that was in school with me from middle school on up, and he's become like a multi-time Pro Bowler by the name of Joe Hayden. He plays he went to Friendly.
He should have came to University of Maryland and he went to University of Florida. Broke my heart.
Florida, right? Yeah. Yeah, and they actually switched his position. He was originally a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
He was like all state quarterback, and then when he got down to to Florida, they switched him over to cornerback.
Right.
And apparently Urban Meyer knew what he was doing because he went on to be like I said, a multi-time Pro Bowler.
Yeah. Is he with the Steelers now? I thought he was with the Steelers or somebody. He's with the Steelers. He's with the Steelers now. Yeah. He's what you call gifted. I played college football with I think 5 guys that played in the Super Bowl. I know one of them worked really hard. He was gifted, but he had to work really hard. But the other 4, they could drink a 6-pack, come out to the practice field, and they were going to beat everybody anyway.
Right.
There's nothing you're going to do to stop them. It's just that God sprinkled them and said, you will have this. And they'll do it.
Yeah.
One of the things I think you do have is you have a gift for entrepreneurship and leadership. And that is also a gift, and you've been displaying it since you've been a child, running the snow shoveling business, running a business in college, and now running a business as an adult. I think it's important to say if people invest in your company, the value of your company is really important and it's high right now. What's the value of your small business, quote unquote?
So yeah, our current valuation is 6.5 million.
Yeah, that's awesome. The people better get in because it's going to exponentially increase once word gets out and you get the seed funding that you need to expand the advertising, marketing, and production.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they got to get
absolutely.
in.
Yeah, like it's a great time, and like I always say, like I think beyond the return, obviously that's the most important thing when you're investing your hard-earned money. But beyond the return, it's also being a part of just making history. Like we will be the first Black-owned global brand, like globally recognized brand, and it'll be something that that thousands of people will be able to say that they were a part of.
Yeah, it's awesome. First global Black-owned watch brand. That's amazing. Yeah. Well, Marcel Benson, thanks for giving me the honor of interviewing. It's going to be hard to get to interview you pretty soon as the company blows up and your PR team and marketing team get in the way and start vetting your interviews. But remember me, hopefully maybe I can help promote the brand even more and get involved and be of service to you. I'd like to do that. But again, if you want to buy a Benson watch, a fine timepiece, please go to bensonwatch.com. And more importantly, not only investing as a consumer, invest as an owner and purchase an interest in the company by investing at bensonwatch.com and at Republic, REPUBLIC.co, right? Republic.co, right?
Correct.
Become an owner of a Benson watch and become an owner in the Benson Watch Company that is destined to be a global watch brand owned by an African-American, one of Maryland's own. Hey, thanks for spending time, and I look forward to the growth of your company and the participation in its growth by being a consumer and an investor owner. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, Sean, for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
Attorney knows best. Intelligent questions. Interesting interviews. Informative insights. Attorney knows best. Attorney knows